Panther season is complete, so exit interviews are here. The head coaching search starts immediately, and Scott Fitterer, the Panthers GM, lays out a plan for the offseason. We got that and more in the latest edition of Panthers News Today. Let's go ahead and get into it, man. Panthers Nation, what up, dude? My name is Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. You guys know it is the channel that I might not tell you what you want to hear, but I'm definitely going to tell you what you need to hear. And on today's edition of Panthers News Today, I got a lot of news to cover. There's a lot of things we're going to get into, but I had to introduce myself because I do Panthers content. And now that we're in the offseason, you know there's a lot of work to be done. So if you want to see more videos about this and the latest updates and videos like this, hit the subscribe button down below and the bell icon because it's going to make sure you get a notification every time I drop a video. But also, give the video a thumbs up, please. It really helps me out in the algorithm, and that engagement really does a lot to help grow the channel. And that's all we want to do is just grow. So I really appreciate that because it doesn't cost you a thing. It only takes about 2 seconds or so. And of course, we have to talk about all this stuff in this video. So I want to get your comments because I have a lot of different topics. Of course, I'll put chapters down into the description, obviously, so you can skip around and let me know how you feel about certain parts about it. So give me that feedback because we got a lot of information from Scott Fitterer. We got some information from Steve Wilks, of course, in his last interview. And the players, of course, had some things to say as well on their way out. So we're going to get into that. So let me know your thoughts as we go into it. Okay, first things first, we got word from official press conferences, per se, from Steve Wilks first, and then Scott Fitterer. Of course, Steve Wilks is the interim coach, so this could potentially be the last time we hear from him if he's not made the permanent head coach. So they asked him some questions about the season, just reflecting back on everything, and he was very, very, very thankful and grateful for the opportunity, but also thankful to the players for giving him his all, buying into the system, just really trying to make something out of the season because not many people gave us a chance. Once Matt Rule was fired back in week, 5, 6, we had the highest odds of getting the #1 overall pick. For Steve Wilks to go 6-6 down the stretch and to have us maybe a game away from going to the playoffs really says a lot. And what he did with the team, with the broken pieces that Matt Rule left, it can't be denied of what he did. Some of you people will try to deny it. Objectively, you really can't deny it because this job was pretty much a dumpster fire until he came around and did what he did with it. Now, some analysts and GMs and execs think this is the hottest coaching opportunity in the league. So kudos to Steve Wilks for that. But the press asked him, what was a little bit interesting to me, if he had any other interviews on the docket. He did not disclose that, but I haven't heard anything. There's been a lot of names floating around. Obviously, today is Black Monday, the day where coaches get fired. I have not heard Steve Wilks being in the carousel of any opportunities. So what does that say? I don't know because there's a lot of good coaches out there, especially black coaches that don't get the opportunity. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? That the Panthers are the only one that have been vocal about giving him an interview. I don't know. I'll let you do with that. Let you do what you want with that information. But I just liked the way Steve Wilks sent the message on. He said that he wanted to let people know that this was our DNA to finish, and we finished the season, put away the Saints. That last drive, it wasn't pretty, but a win is a win. People asked him what would they say if they criticized him about an ugly win. He said an ugly win is an ugly win. Because if Aaron Rodgers, he would have took an ugly win last night over good passing yards because the Packers, they lost to the Lions and they missed out on the playoffs. Ugly wins are only something that the fans think about. A win is a win, and it's hard to win in the NFL. If these last couple of years with Matt Rule has not taught you that, where have you been? Winning is hard in this NFL. You can't just show up and expect to win. You have to put in the work. You have to execute on game day. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to be motivated, doing the right thing at the same time. It's a whole process. I hope we got a little bit of an appreciation for what it takes to win this year. I doubt it because this is Panthers Nation. It is what it is, man. We're all on different pages at times. Nevertheless, Steve Wilks' potential here, from what I'm hearing, I think he has, and my sources are just whatever. I don't really have sources. But word on the street from what I hear and some rumbles is that Steve Wilks pretty much has the inside track to be the head coach. He's going to meet with David Tepper and Scott Fitterer this week. I think Tuesday was the day they told me. So they're going to sit down. And what Steve Wilks is going to do is lay out a plan. What is your plan for offensive coordinator, meaning that Ben McAdoo probably won't be back because, honestly, if Steve Wilks put Ben McAdoo in his plan going forward, he doesn't deserve to be the head coach. Let's just get that clear. But also, what is the plan for quarterback going forward? Because, one, Matt Corral is injured right now. Sam Darnold's a free agent, and P.J. Walker is a restricted free agent as well. What are we going to do with the quarterback position, which are the most important things to obviously David Tepper, because we've done things over the past to get the defense better, to improve the O-line. The next step is to go quarterback. We'll talk about what Scott Fitterer had to say a little bit about that later, because we're going to talk about pretty much everything Scott had to say in his whole press conference. But quarterback and offensive coordinator is going to be the major keys, because even if Steve Wilks is brought in, that offensive mindset and mentality and what we do with the personnel we have is going to be huge going forward. And I think it's going to really predicate everything that this Panthers team can do in the future, because I think we're a competent quarterback away from winning this division and being able to have a chokehold on this division for a while. That could be my biased opinion, but you guys let me know how you feel about the potential of Steve Wilks being the head coach if he can get that right offensive coordinator and quarterback plan together. Because I pretty much think he has the inside track. He just has to say the right things and execute that plan and make sure he's on the same page with upper level management, aka the owner David Tepper and Scott Fitterer, the general manager. So we'll see what happens. So we got to get to the bad news and some whatever interesting news on the injury front. Obviously, Austin Corbett, our starting right guard, and Brady Christensen, our starting left guard, both left the Saints game yesterday from injuries. Unfortunately, Brady Christensen has a fractured ankle. He'll be getting an MRI, some x-rays, I guess, to see what the prognosis is. Hopefully, it's not too serious. Surgery won't be required, and he'll be ready for training camp next year. Right guard, Austin Corbett. He unfortunately tore his ACL on that interception return in that Saints game. I don't know if you can blame it on the turf. I don't know if it was just rolled up on. I'll have to go back and watch the tape. But one of our best offensive linemen, in my opinion, he probably was the best offensive lineman this year. If I had to pick somebody, Austin Corbett, it sucks because it happens in the last week of the season, in a meaningless game. You don't want to see these things happen, and we'll see. Scott Fitterer mentioned that he expected Corbett to be ready for the start of the season, but the whole offseason program is probably going to be spent rehabbing for him because ACLs are anywhere between 6 to 8 months, and it's going to take you a full calendar year probably to get back normal, and maybe a season plus that. Fortunately, he's just an offensive lineman, not an explosive athlete like a running back or a receiver that needs to do high-speed stuff and make super cuts. So it'll just be about getting that strength. As somebody who's torn their ACL personally, I came back in 6 months. I was not the same coming back after those 6 months, but I was definitely healthy enough to play with the knee brace, and I was just in college. I didn't have the grade A, A1 facilities that Austin Corbett will have at his disposal to be able to rehab, especially with Ryan Vermillion gone and the trash trainer that's up there with the football team that got investigated by the feds that pretty much ruined the careers of some of our greats. Without him around, hopefully Corbett will be able to bounce back. So two of our interior linemen, they are on the fringes. However, we'll see what happens. Other injuries going forward, Matt Corral. He got the screws taken out of his foot. Officially, we saw him. Last we saw, he had a boot on. I think he was taking a picture with Lane Kiffin, but he got the screws taken out. The rehab process seems to be going well. We'll see if he'll be ready for the offseason program or how long it'll take, because those Liz Frank injuries can be messy and complicated. So we shall see. Dante Jackson also gave word that he says he'll be on track to be ready for training camp coming off that torn Achilles. We know how much we need our corners in J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson after that Bucs game, what we saw. So good to see that. Good news on Dante Jackson. He's under contract. He will be back. J.C. Horn, our perennial all-star, all-pro, whatever, future corner, he said he would have played had we went to the playoffs and clubbed up. We saw pictures of him at the Hornets game with Brian Burns, and he had just a little bandage on that right wrist. So it shows that the injury wasn't as serious as it could have been. It was just way too fast of a turnover for him to come right back for that Bucs game that following week. It's unfortunate how things play out because we beat the Saints. So literally all we needed to do was just finish that fourth quarter game and keep that lead that we had up 11 points on the Bucs, and we could have been talking about playoffs right now instead of the news and talking about next year already. Nevertheless, this is the hand that we're dealt, but that is the injury front moving forward. Everybody seems pretty clean health, not nothing bad. Unfortunately, those injuries to the offensive line, which is probably our best unit on this team, happened in the last game of the season. You never want to see that, but the prognosis on some guys that we lost earlier in the year seems to be okay. So you guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about our offensive line being beat up. Are you concerned about next year? Do you think we should address more depth in the offseason with those guys? Let me know how you feel down below in the comments. The next topic to discuss is the Panthers' next year's opponents. With the season being over, We don't know the exact schedule. Obviously, that'll come out around the draft. But now, based off of the divisions that we play against and all that, we know at least the opponents in the home and away games. And of course, this year we have the NFC North and it looks like the AFC South. Of course, some people can be hot and cold about it. I don't like to look too much into the schedule because the way the teams played this year, they're not going to be next year. Some people are mad we don't get their last place schedule after beating the Saints. It's stupid. A lot of y'all thought we were only going to win 3 or 4 games based off the opponents because y'all just swore up and down the Broncos were going to be world beaters. I did too. I mean, I'm not going to cap. I thought they were going to be good too. But regardless, you can't really look too deep into some of these schedules. But it's always interesting to look at what we're going to do. And some of the highlights I want to say, because I like to go to some games myself, I'm definitely going to be going to Miami on the away game to South Beach. I don't care what time of year it is. I'm going to South Beach. Also, we'll be hosting the Dallas Cowboys, of course. So it's like, Jesus Christ, we got to deal with these dudes in our stadium. Good luck there. And, of course, the Packers, 2 huge fan bases. So filling up Bank of America Stadium will be key for those weeks. For just going back to the away games, we will be going to Seattle yet again. I don't understand why we keep having to play Seattle for one, and 2, going to Seattle. When is the last time we played Seattle at home? What, 2-3 years ago? And that was the first time in a while, too. So I'm tired of playing the Seahawks. All right. So we'll probably see Geno yet again. He'll want some revenge from last year. But the Panthers will be going to Florida 3 times. We're going to South Beach for the Miami Dolphins. We're going to Tampa to play the Bucks, of course, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars. So 3 trips to Florida. It'll be hot. Make sure they drink their water and drink their Ovaltine, I guess. You'll catch that one later if you catch my drift on jokes like that. But some decent opponents, man. We'll break down the schedule, obviously, in May when the actual dates and stuff come out because that'll play a big part. And we'll know a little bit more about where these teams stand as far as what they do in the offseason and what my prediction is and how good they'll be. It'll still be far-fetched because there's so much time left before the season, even then in May when we get the schedule. But I had to talk about what came out of those opponents. So you guys let me know down below in the comments if you're interested in any of the games I put up on the screen. Will you be attending any of those games? What do you think our early prediction for wins could be? I know you guys like to do predictions and look forward. So go ahead and give me your prediction about how many wins you see initially on this schedule. Let me know. All right, so we got to talk about Scott Fitterer, man, the general manager for the Panthers. You know Scott Fitterer, my personal favorite guy on the team. He gives a lot of information. He doesn't spill the beans, but he's very straightforward, doesn't do coach speak. He's not media trained, so he's going to spill the beans if you ask the questions the right way, and the media had a lot of questions for him. I have some clips I'm going to play in between these things just to talk about what he said, but one of the things I did want to play was about Bradley Bozeman, obviously a pending free agent. We signed him to a 1-year deal. This guy stepped in for, Pat Elflein and was flawless. Our offensive line really went to another level because he's a huge center. And we really became that knock-em-out knocker team and running the ball downhill down people's throats because of this guy in the middle anchoring this offensive line. And I love this guy. I want him to bring him back. We need nasty guys like this. He's a pillar in the community. He's a pillar on the team. His wife is lovely. He's expecting a baby on Monday. This guy embraced Charlotte, embraced the community. I want to bring this guy back. Sounds like he wants to be back. Let's listen to what Scott Fitterer had to say about Bradley.
Bradley's great. He's a great teammate, great leader. He's great in the community. He's one of the bigger centers in the NFL. He's very physical. And what he does, he takes a lot off the quarterback's plate as far as line calls and managing the line up front. We have really smart offensive line and we're very well coached with Camp, but with Corbett at right guard, Brady at left guard, Bozeman at center, great communication up front, which is what you need. But Bozeman was a great addition, really happy about him. We had a good talk this morning about his future. Again, same thing, kind of driven by, but he's a guy that we would like back. I think he wants to be back, and he's part of our future.
As you can see, Fitterer was not shy. He said, I don't want to put too much out there because of the market, and you don't want to you got to negotiate with GMs. However, Scott Fitterer made it very clear that Bradley Bozeman is everything they look for in offensive linemen. What happened with him when he got inserted to the lineup, how big he is, the type of lineman he is, it just said a lot. And he said he is a part of our future. That's a big statement to say about a guy that's not under contract next year. That means they want to get this done. And to me, he is priority numero uno in this offseason. Yes, you want to get Brian Burns extended, but I think Bradley Bozeman being a free agent and bringing him back to anchor this line, especially with questions at your guard positions on both sides of him, you need to anchor that middle of the line, and signing him should be priority number one. And it sounds like me and Scott Fitterer are on the same pace there. Also, Scott Fitterer talked about the running back. He was questioned about Deontay Foreman, the running back. He sounds like he's going to be a priority as well, because they asked him, and he said he liked what Deontay did. They loved what he was able to do. Deontay today, he said he hasn't been shy about saying that he wanted to come back. He said he'd been walking around the facility all day when they were unpacking his locker, packing up his locker, telling people that he wanted to be back, hoping that he'd be back, almost begging and pleading to be back. Unfortunately, the last we saw was him punching Marcus Davenport, which I don't mind. You know what I'm saying? Anytime you smack around the Saints, I'm all for it. Unfortunately, got kicked out and missed out on the opportunity to get 1,000 yards. But for this guy to be able to get close to 1,000 in such an abbreviated time span, being the man at running back, I was pretty happy with his production. I'm not close to bringing him back. Depending on who our offensive coordinator is, of course, he may fit a system or maybe not. However, I think if we have any kind of pro-style system where we're under center a lot, he should definitely be a priority, because we know this guy is a bruising back and he couples well with our bruising offensive line in that running game. So happy to see that Deontay Foreman wants to return, and happy to see that Scott Fitterer is open to bringing him back. But to go back to what Scott Fitterer was talking about in terms of the coaching search, he had some very, very keen things about what he said. They asked him how many people were going to interview for the coach's opportunity, and he said not a large group. We know in the past when we've interviewed guys, we've interviewed a lot of guys. When we interviewed GMs with Matt Rule, we interviewed a lot of guys, and it was really crazy, and it drug out. Hopefully this thing doesn't drag out, and it sounds like they had some interest and some rumors running around about Frank Wright. Jim Caldwell's supposed to interview today as well. Obviously, Steve Wilks has his interview tomorrow. There's a good mix of younger guys, those offensive coordinators that everybody wants these days, and old OG vets that know that they're established. They've had some success. Jim Caldwell, if we can get him as offensive coordinator under Wilks, that would be amazing, because this guy worked with Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford. He helped get Joe Flacco a Super Bowl and a bag. Jim Caldwell can't be denied when in terms of quarterback development. If you really want to develop a quarterback, especially a pocket type of passer or any kind of scrambling quarterback that needs to improve in the pocket, I don't think there's anybody better than Jim Caldwell. I'm actually interested in Jim Caldwell as a head coaching candidate as well. So if Steve Wilks could even bring him in to be OC, I would love that, to be honest. But my ideal scenario would probably be Steve Wilks and Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach from the Eagles. They helped develop Jalen Hurts. Nevertheless, here is what Scott Fitterer had to say about the plan of a coach and what his selling point to any potential coach could be. Let's play the clip.
It's funny because we've had agents that have reached out to us, and obviously we can't start the process yet. And we have to be very careful of those rules. But I think this is a very, very attractive job on the outside where people are looking at it. Hey, look, this is a young team. This division is up for grabs here the next few years. There's no dominant quarterback. They look at our defense. They look at the offensive line, some of the pieces that we have, and the way we're growing right now. And with a few tweaks here and there, you know, this is a division that we can take over. You know, that opportunity is there. It's up to us to do it. So I think they see that. They like the ownership situation. You know, they know Mr. Tepper will be there to support them. And so it's a very attractive job.
And as you can see, I mean, he listed all the things I talked about a little bit earlier. The division is in turmoil right now. Who knows where Tom Brady's going to end up? There's not a dominant quarterback. The Saints have questions at quarterback. The Falcons, they have questions as well, and they're kind of in turmoil too. And the Panthers, we don't have our quarterback, but we are high enough to have an opportunity to get it right, and we have other things in place. He mentioned the offensive line. He mentioned the youth. We have some pieces on defense that just need some tweaks, and we'll be ready to compete. I mean, honestly, if we get the head coach and the OC right, and we get that quarterback where we need, I think the Panthers can make the playoffs next year. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Will be expecting playoffs next year if everything goes according to plan this offseason from what I heard. But Scott Fitterer wasn't lying. And like I said, execs think that this may be the most attractive head coaching opportunity in the NFL. So I'll be excited to see that as well. And like I said, as Steve Wilks having an inside track, it'll all be about what he can sell to Fitterer and Tepper and what his plan will be for the quarterback and offensive coordinator position. So you guys let me know how you feel about what Scott Fitterer had to say about the attractiveness of the position and if you agree on that, okay? But other things that he laid out. He really laid out the insight of his offseason plan, and I love when Scott Fitterer spills the beans like this because we know exactly how to approach this, and I'll be actually tailoring my draft content and videos towards some of these things that Scott Fitterer said. So let's listen to what Scott Fitterer had to say about his offseason plan and what positions he wants to address and look at.
We tried to build a defense the first year, and then it's like, do you want to put a young quarterback behind an offensive line that probably wasn't up to par last year, or do you want to fix the offensive line? And now, we went out and we drafted Corral, and you could see the progress in Sam Darnold this year. Just he showed more confidence, more patience in the pocket, so that was a good thing. We don't want to force that, but eventually we do need a guy that we need to draft and develop. We need someone homegrown that's going to be here over a long period of time, whether that's Matt, whether it's Sam that we keep here who's still a young quarterback, or someone else. We're going to keep all of our options open and do what's best for this team.
But man, just to recap some of the key stuff he said, that the plan was the first. They wanted to build the defense first. Obviously, we had that defense, all defensive draft. Check. We have a couple more pieces we need to fill up, but I like the pieces that we have. And he talked about he wanted to get the next year. They thought about getting a quarterback, but they didn't want to put a young quarterback behind a bad offensive line. I guess they wanted to let Sam and Baker take their lumps, or Baker was rule playing. Who knows? But that's smart, I guess, because the offensive line is the reason why so many of our quarterbacks played decent when they had an opportunity. PJ actually played decent for a backup quarterback. Baker didn't have many moments, but he had some, I guess, in the first week. And of course, Sam looked like a brand new quarterback behind that offensive line for those 4 or 5 games before, obviously yesterday wasn't the best. Nevertheless, our offensive line and then running game took off, and we were able to support that. So he said, also he mentioned he wanted to get a homegrown quarterback to draft and develop. Obviously, Corral is there, but you can't bank on an injured quarterback, especially off of Liz Frank. We've seen Cam go through the Liz Frank, and sometimes and how dicey it can be. You can't really bank on an injured quarterback. So I would move with the assumption that we're going to act like Matt Corral isn't there. If he ends up excelling and shocking all of us, that is a plus. But we can't go into the offseason expecting him to be the guy next year, especially the only guy as our quarterback. So I expect us to try to address the quarterback with a homegrown, like he said, eventually. But he also said there's some other positions he wanted to add.
Again, you want to give too much away because other teams watch these things, but you always want a ball hawk on the back end. There'll be speed, speed of linebacker. You can always use another pass rusher opposite Burns, tight ends and vertical receivers.
A vertical wide receiver, a tight end that can make some plays, a ball hawk on defense, and some speed on maybe the edge as well. These are all things that we all know. So I feel good about myself because I know what I see on film. I know what I assess. I feel good that Scott Fitterer is seeing some of the same things. Obviously, we need somebody across from Burns. We need somebody else to be able to get consistent pressure as well. Somebody that's cheaper and young, preferably, but somebody across from Burns. Linebacker could be good, of course. We know we need a playmaker at tight end. We need somebody with a big catch radius that can run down the middle, can get deep, can get outside, can get some yards at the catch. I'm talking like Jason Kelsey, Hunter Henry, those type of guys, the big body guys that run down the middle that help. I just name random guys. That's all I can think of. But we need a tight end like that and a vertical speed wide receiver on the inside. DJ has some speed, but he runs the whole route tree. Terrace Marshall Jr. can get deep and make contested catches, but he's not a burner. Shi Smith, he struggled, but he's not that fast either. We got rid of Robbie, and Robbie can only play outside and only can do certain things. We need a speed and vertical threat and a guy after catch. I got a couple guys in mind, and I'm going to get some film on. We're going to do some breakdowns on there. But I like adding that dynamic element to this offense. Personally, I would say we need a better pass-catching running back as well. And this running back draft class is very deep, so I'm very excited about getting into that as well. But I think we could do something like that too. He also said that this offseason was not going to be a nuts and bolts. We did nuts and bolts before, building the defense, getting an offensive line. It's not always pretty. Now they can take some risk and take some shots and try to get some luxury picks. You know what I'm saying? Some sexy guys. Pause.
This is a year that we kind of focused on building the basics the last 2 years, defense and offensive line. This is the year that we can go out and take some shots on more explosive type athletes and players. It might be a little bit more of a sexy draft than just a nuts and bolts type draft. So we'll see how it goes. You never know what it's going to look like. There's a lot of work to do in the draft room and free agency, but we're in a position now where we can take some of those shots.
But I love what I'm hearing from Scott Fitterer. I actually got excited hearing this press conference. I was like rolling my eyes about this offseason, but all the information I got today from these exit interviews about and what I'm hearing from the sources about the confidence in Wilks and the potential of Wilks and the guys we could interview, I feel good about what this offseason is, and I feel good about the guys we have. Like I said, the right head coach, right offensive coordinator, a good young quarterback, I think we'll be ready to compete next year, at least playoffs, because this division is for the taking. And if not that, the next couple of years, the division should be ours. So if you guys, let me know down below in the comments how you feel about the Panthers' future after hearing some of these clips and what I've been talking about, breaking this stuff down, and how you feeling about the offseason as a whole. Do you think the Panthers are right there on the cusp of being able to compete? Obviously, they were one step away from doing it this year, but I want to get you guys' thoughts on how you feel and how you feel about the potential of Wilks leading us into the next steps of this team. Let me know down below in the comments, but without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off. Make sure you are subscribed. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.